Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Fleet Geeks. Fleet Geek. I'm on my own. You might have noticed that there is only one of me today on this podcast. I guess it's a testament to the fact that we're very, very busy at flagship headquarters at the moment, and it's sometimes we find it's a struggle to get together and record podcasts. We do like to put content out very regularly, so it's fallen upon me to fly solo today. And flying solo means that I can talk about what I want, because Pete's not here, is he? So I can talk what I want, and I can be contentious. And boss is not here. I'm going to be slightly contentious, not ever so contentious, slightly contentious, and hopefully you'll get the why I'm being contentious and what I'm going to say. I've entitled the podcast, I don't like the word compliance, and I don't. Number one, it's a horrible word, isn't it? It's just a horrible word. When you say it in your head, it's just horrible. I don't know why. Connotations, all kind of things going on with you. You know, you will comply, blah, blah, blah. And that's what compliance is, isn't it? It's adherence to the law or adherence to the rules. Even something simple like, when you go into the local park and it says, keep off the grass. If you keep off the grass, you're complying with the rules and regulations of the park. So that's what compliance is. Why I don't like it, apart from the fact it's a horrible word, I don't like it because it kind of makes you think that it's just about numbers. A lot of what we do is numbers in our world, in the world of transport. A lot of the rules and regulations concern numbers. So, for example, in the simplest possible terms, a driver can drive for 4.5 hours before taking a break from driving. So to comply with the rules, to comply with the law, if a driver drives for 4 hours and 31 minutes, you're non-compliant with the law. If a driver drives for 4 hours and 29 minutes, then that driver is compliant with the law. Does that make that driver who drove for 4 hours and 29 minutes, or even 4 hours and 30 minutes, does that make them a safer driver than the driver who drove for 4 hours and 31 minutes? No, not necessarily, does it? Because we're dealing with numbers, we sort of say, well, that's okay because that's compliant. That's okay, not okay because it's non-compliant. Now, I understand in the rule of law, you do need a rule of law, don't you? You need some framework. You need a framework to work within. But we are heavily reliant on numbers and mere numbers. What started this all off? Right, okay, so I saw online there was a post earlier on, it was last week actually. Last week there was a post online. I think the person who put the post up was a journalist connected or was travelling around with or had something to do with a roads policing unit somewhere I can't even remember where it was in the country. But they'd clearly got this vehicle stopped, and this vehicle was a curtain-side double-deck trailer, the type typically used on, and it looked just like what this one was, the type typically used on the pallet networks for their trunking operations. So a step-frame double-deck trailer, not movable decks, just a double-deck trailer, curtain-side. Obviously, the object of the exercise is you get more pallets on, carry more freight. And they'd stopped this vehicle, and the headline was pallets over 400 kilos not allowed on the top deck. Not allowed on the top deck. Now, there actually in law, there is nothing in law which tells us that gives us any description or hint or idea about what a pallet should or shouldn't weigh. And there's nothing that says it shouldn't load it on the top deck. So we look to guidance rather than law, and the guidance produced by the Department for Transport, the people who run the DVSA, so they're the ones not to mess with. Their guidance says that a heavy pallet is something that weighs over 400 kilos. And therefore, it also goes on in that guidance. It's a great document. If you want, download it, go to the website. Guidance for safe loading of vehicles. It's a fantastic document. And that will tell us that a heavy pallet is over 400 kilos. And it will go on further to tell us that heavy pallets should not be loaded on the top deck of double deck trailers. So my problem is that that's given us a number, hasn't it? That's given us a number, 400 kilos. So presumably then, if they'd have took those pallets down and weighed them and they were 399 kilos, they'd have just put them back up and said, oh, that's okay, that's safe to go on. But because they were over 400 kilos, then that was, in effect, goes against the guidance, and therefore that load it was deemed as an insecure load. So Regulation 100 of the construction use regulations, that would have been the offence committed by that particular operator.
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. Flagship Partners offer a range of consultancy and training services to ensure that our customers remain compliant and have the best possible knowledge to be able to fulfill their work. If you're interested in support with any of our safety, HR or compliance services, or you want to train to be a transport manager or need driver CPC training, give us a call today.
Fair, all very well and good. I get it, totally understand it, and people should remember that. However, my beef, if you like, is that it takes some guidance. It takes something written down with a number to mean that something is compliant or non-compliant. Doesn't mean it's safe or unsafe. So it's a mantra that we push out quite often in our world, and that is that a compliance doesn't equal safety. You can be a brilliantly compliant operator, but you might not necessarily be a safe operator. You could potentially be a safe operator that's non-compliant. So the message is, don't get the two mixed up. With this truck that had been stopped, and with the pallets on the top deck that were clearly, you could see by the pictures, they were clearly heavy pallets. I didn't weigh them. I don't know that for a fact, but they were clearly heavy pallets. So the problem has been brought down in black and white to a set of numbers. Over 400 kilos, non-compliant, bad. Yeah, under 400 kilos, compliant, good. And I don't think it's that straightforward. As an operator who has now got a ticket for having an insecure load, or a driver's got a ticket, let's face it, it's the driver. And that's another argument in itself, isn't it? The driver's got the ticket. That vehicle has an insecure load because the pallets on the top deck were heavy pallets. As an operator, I'm going to be thinking to myself, what led us to letting that vehicle go out that yard, or what led somebody to make a decision to put a heavy pallet on the top deck? And that's what I'm trying to get at. It's what we can sometimes not look at. And I think it's in lots of areas of the world, isn't it? What we can look at is the lack of common sense. That maybe the lack of knowledge of physics. Maybe we don't teach physics in schools like we used to. But somebody putting a heavy pallet on a tall vehicle, when you're looking up there on a tall vehicle, if you're thinking of the motion of that vehicle as it goes down the road, and the effect that sort of pendulum effect on the heavy stuff that's in the top of that vehicle. If people are loading vehicles that don't understand those basic laws of physics, common sense, then, what hope have we got? And we shouldn't be just relying on numbers. If those pallets had been brought down from that top deck, we might have weighed them at 399 kilos and said, why, compliant. 401 kilos, non-compliant, less than a bag of sugar. And that doesn't make the vehicle safe or unsafe. It just, this reliance on numbers, as transport professionals, we clearly need those numbers. We need those lines in the sand. We need those benchmarks. But let's look beyond compliance and look at, is that a safe thing? Is that a safe act? What are we doing there? I'll give you a classic example, speed limits. That's a classic one, isn't it? The number of accident investigations I've done or accident reports that I've read, and the first thing that the driver will say in their defence is, I wasn't speeding. No, you weren't speeding in the sense of the word that you were doing less than the prescribed speed limit for that vehicle on that road, but that's completely different to, were you going too fast? Just because you were driving under the speed limit for that vehicle on that road does not necessarily mean that you weren't driving too fast. Otherwise, the vehicle wouldn't be lying on its side now, would it? So again, this adherence is okay. Well, I've got a vehicle lying on its side. It's in a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, and we've got evidence from the tracking system and from the tachograph that vehicle was only travelling at 42 miles an hour at that point. Yeah, that's not the end of it, is it? You can't just say, well, that's cut and dried then. The driver wasn't to blame for that accident because the driver wasn't speeding. So this fixation with numbers, we have to look beyond numbers and look at the human element. What decision-making process was that driver going through, taking those bends at that speed where, even though the speed limit was 50, and you could go on and on with these examples. Another great example, of course, is the drink driving limit. Drivers had a crash and blown 34 on the breathalyzer, one below the legal limit. That driver's compliant in terms of the law, but that's certainly that driver possesses or poses a danger to other road users with 34 in their system. And that, of course, could be a major factor in a road traffic collision. And it, just because they don't, they haven't gone over and above. And imagine the scenario, that driver would be compliant in Carlisle, but drive 20 miles across the border, and that driver is now a criminal because the limit is lower in Scotland. So this and that's what they've looked at, haven't they? They've looked at not numbers, but they've looked at the factors, the human factors involving drinking and driving. So in Scotland, they've decided that the human factor needs to be lowered, whatever, whether that's something you support or not. I think everybody probably would support a lower drink drive limit, but there we are. So that's me done. Tell us what you hit that like, subscribe, and what's the other one? I can't remember what the YouTubers do. Hit that like, subscribe, and comments button. That's what gets us the algorithms and what have you. That's what gets us the searches. So hit that, follow us, and let us know what you think in the comments. What do you think about that compliance? Should we just be looking at the numbers? And if it is the right side of the numbers, great. What's the problem? Or do we need to look beyond the numbers and think about it in a wider sense? So anyway, that's me. I'm done. And as I've got no one to debate or argue with, case closed, Your Honour. And see you on the next one.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.